Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Rock Bottom Airsoft. It's good to see you again, and as always, if it's your first time here, then it is good to see you, and I hope you're going to stick around. Okay, well, got the SRC G36 in front of me again, because as promised, I have some work to do on this particular replica. So I thought we'd do a bit of a tech video today, and have a look and see what's going on with this replica. I must apologise about my voice. I've got a little bit of a cold again. It's not the dreaded, just a cold, done a test. So basically we're going to have a look at this G36 today. Now before we get into it, as always, if you have been enjoying my series of videos, then please do subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed this video, then pop a like on it. If you have any questions for me, or if you have any information you'd like to share, or any suggestions for the channel, then drop me a comment below. I'll always respond to comments. I might not get back to you straight away, but I will always respond. And also, if you want further content from the channel, you can find Rock Bottom Airsoft on Facebook and Instagram. There are pictures and discussions and things like that on there, okay? So, with that out of the way, let's crack on. I got this particular SRC G36 AEG second hand. I got it used. I've put a couple of rounds through it. All I've done so far is change the connector to Dean's for the main battery connector. And it was a little bit sluggish, which says to me that either there's some issues in the gearbox that need addressing, or the motor is possibly on its way out, or maybe the wiring's had it. There could be something that's reducing the performance of this replica. So before I field it, I think I'm going to have a play around with it and see if we can improve the performance a little bit. Now, this could end up being quite a lengthy video if I'm doing all the way to the gearbox, stripping the gearbox, doing some work on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the video up. I think what we'll do today is we'll show you how to strip G36 down to the gearbox so that you can get the gearbox out and actually do some work on it. And in the next video we will strip the gearbox and do some work on that, just so that it's not endlessly going on and you get fed up and it breaks it down a bit for you. Whenever I do these kind of videos, I like to talk about it a little bit. As you know, I probably talk a bit too much, but at least then you can see what I'm doing. I want to hope that you could watch this video and then go away and do it yourself quite easily. With regard to if you don't have an SRC G36, I've worked on quite a few different brands of G36, ASG, JG, Cyma, to name a few, and they all pretty much break down the same way. It doesn't matter if you have the K, a full length one, whether you have an inbuilt optic like this, or whether you have a 20mm rail on the top, they all pretty much take down the same way. So you could probably use this for pretty much any G36 takedown. The method should be the same. The only slight difference you'll have is if you have a full stock, you'll have a long screw in the full stock. This has a folding stock, which is standard really. You tend to find majority have the folding stock on the G36, but if you have a full stock, you'll have a big long screw that goes into the back that you have to undo with a long screwdriver. That'll be the only difference in method. So let's crack on. First things first, we'll have to take this rail off. Now I've got a front grip with bipod built in, which I'm going to leave on because we're not doing anything with the handguard here. Now you'll notice on your front handguard you'll have a pin up here. It doesn't matter whether you have the railed handguard like this, a metal one, or a plastic handguard, you will have a pin here. So the first thing that we have to do is push the pin out. They're normally pretty easy to push out. If you need to use a tool, then you could use one of these, which is a punch, or you could use a screwdriver or an Allen key just to push it out. The pin should remove all the way. Put that to one side, and the handguard just slides off like so, and that is how you'd put your battery in. So I'd imagine that the majority of you have already done that, because that would be how you'd mount the battery. So we'll put that rail to one side, we don't need that for now, and we'll put the pin back where it goes so that we don't lose it. Okay, so that then takes us down to the first part of disassembly. The next part of disassembly would be to remove the outer barrel and inner barrel assembly, which is quite simple. You'll notice that you have 3 Phillips head screws, one here, and one here. We need to remove those screws, so I'll do that just now. If you want to do the same, remove those 3 screws, that one, and that one, which will enable us to remove our outer barrel assembly. So I'll do that just now. When you remove those screws, you'll notice that you have a selection of nuts that have fallen out at the back here. Those nuts are recessed on this side of the replica. You don't want to lose them, so keep hold of those. What you'll find is the screws might remain in there, so you can take your punch or your screwdriver and just push them all the way out. Another thing to note is that you'll have 2 long screws, which are these 2 at the back here, and the one at the front will be slightly smaller. See, slightly shorter. What I would recommend to do at this point is, you don't want to lose any of these items. You can buy replacements, but you won't have them to hand. So if you wanted to get your replica back up and running, what I tend to do is just thread the little nuts back onto the screws, like so, and then put them to one side, because you don't want to lose them. And remember that the smaller screw goes to the front of the replica. So we'll just do that. Okay, so that's all your screws out. You've pushed them through. So now your front barrel assembly will be free to move. Now, one thing to note is on the G36 builds, as you might notice here, is there is another mini Tamiya connector which connects the looms together. You need to disconnect that, like so that you can remove the inner barrel assembly, which should just slide out, slide forward. If it gets stuck on the Tamiya connector, then just jiggle it about a bit till you can get it out. You can see I'm having problems getting stuck on the wiring. And we're out. Okay, so that's your inner and outer barrel assembly removed, with your hop-up unit complete, all connected. Have a look down the barrel while we're at it. Wow. Well, that barrel is actually perfectly clean, so I don't need to do anything with that barrel assembly. The hop is protruding, so that's great. So that also includes a fuse. Now, I'm not going to delete the fuse. As many of you know me will know, I tend not to delete the fuses. Be very careful with this wiring. It's very easy to pinch, and you don't want to pinch your wiring. So we don't need to do anything with this outer barrel or inner barrel assembly or the hop up. As you can see with these as standard, it's a metal hop unit. It's a good hop unit. So we don't need to do anything with that. It's tip-top, as I would call it. So we'll put that to one side. We don't need that right now. We can continue our strip down. Now, I always start from front to back. It's up to you how you decide to do it, but moving backwards along the rifle to carry on taking it apart, the next item that you'll want to remove is this pin here. This pin holds your magwell in place. Interestingly, if you were going to put again, these pins are never hard to remove on the G36. You normally don't have to punch them out or drive them out. So once you've removed that pin, put that to one side. This magwell, if you were ever going to replace it with an M4 style mag adapter, this would be the process you follow. You take that pin out. The next thing you need to do to remove this is you operate the mag release as if you were going to release a magazine, pull forward and away. And that will remove the magwell. We don't need that for now. We can put that to one side. If you don't want to lose any of the pins, what you can do is just put the pins back where they came from. There's no harm in doing that. That means you're not going to lose them. They're kept with a piece of equipment. Now, as you can see now, we are now in a position where we can see the wiring loom. and we can remove it and put it out of the way, so it'll make it easier to remove the rest of the gearbox. Okay, so we're getting there now. We're starting to come loose. Okay, now next up, you'll notice we have an Allen key here. You have a little Allen head there, another Allen or X head there, and if you fold the stock, you'll notice that you've got an Allen or X head screw there as well. So first of all, we shall remove these ones. See if I get the right size Allen key. Look at that, first time out. So first of all, we'll remove these. Move those out of the way. We don't want to lose any of these items, so keep your screws safe. Sometimes what I find is if you're not sure where things go back, you can either draw a rough diagram on a piece of paper and put the screws in relation to where they've come out, so you know where to put them back when you put them back. Or what I tend to do is I get a multi-tray, like something you'd store screws in and that type of thing, and I'll put them in there in a rough order of the side of the rifle they've come from and the direction that they've come from on the rifle, and that way you won't lose anything. The last screw is the screw in the back here, so we shall remove that. This one will probably be bigger than the others. Okay, so that's quite a lengthy Allen head bolt there, so we'll put that with these other Allen head bolts. So that's that out. Put our Allen key to one side. Now, with that now out, what you'll find is that the gearbox will become excessively loose because we've freed it up, and it should just pull out. And you should just be able to pull the whole assembly down and out. And you can now put what is left to one side. We don't need that. So I'll pop that down here. Right. So there you go. That is us nearly there. Got your wiring loom, gearbox. Nozzle looks alright. Gearbox looks in good nick. So we are cooking on gas now, guys. Okay, now there is a pin that you've probably noticed there. We need to remove that pin in order to get the gearbox free. That's a trigger bar. There are sprung items inside there. I don't know if you can notice the spring in there. That has a nasty habit of falling out, so be careful about that. Next up, what we have to do is you have a large Allen head bolt in the base of the pistol grip. So we shall remove that one. It's a different size to the others, not a problem. Slightly smaller. So we have a smaller key on the bottom. It's quite strong. So we'll remove that one. Once it's broke, I tend to just use the long end, just for preventing cross threading. You have to be gentle with these things. So that's that one out of the bottom of the pistol grip. And then last but not least, you can use your punch if you like to punch that pin out. The pin is right there, not the front hole, the hole behind it, not that pin there. You can remove that pin from there, see? Once that pin is out, we'll put that to one side. We don't need that. Now, it can be fiddly getting this out, but once that is removed, the gearbox should just slide out if you move between semi and full to stop jamming. There goes that spring I mentioned. It was quite tight. Right. So the little spring that I mentioned has come off as we suspected it would. That lives on top of there. You see there's a little divot on top of that piece there. That just lives on top of there like that. So let's put that to one side, put the spring back where it lives, and then we don't lose it. And that, guys, is you at your gearbox, ready to go. Now, as many of you know, I'm not a big fan of mini Tamiya connectors. They're not the best. Unfortunately, with the G36, as with the M14 variants, you have a mid connection. Now, the more connection points you have, the more resistance you have in your wiring system, in your electrical system. You can delete that if you like. It makes it much more difficult to take the rifle apart. So what I would normally do is potentially swap that out also for a Dean's connector. So we've got Dean's in both places. The only drawback to that with the G36 is that that is slightly wider if you put a Dean's connector on. It's shorter, but slightly wider, and that can cause you more difficulties. What I'm going to do for today is I'm not going to change that mini Tamiya connection point. That'll be a job I do in the future, primarily because I've run out of T connectors, because I've been doing a lot of work with Dean's connectors at the moment, so I've run out of Dean's connectors, so that's one reason I'm not going to do that right now. And another reason is it does make it very fiddly to get the Dean's connector to sit right. It's doable, and we'll do that in another video, but for now we're just going to have a clean up of this replica and the gearbox and see what's in there. But it looks like good quality. The selector plate looks in good condition. It's not too worn, not too damaged. The wiring is not pinched or cut anywhere. That is the standard SRC high torque motor. You can notice that connection on the motor there has been scraped off. The insulation has been removed. That's not a problem. We can repair that. Put another heat shrink on there. And that is us to the gearbox. So that is how you strip your G36 completely down to its bare components. We've got the inner and outer barrel out, so if you wanted to do any work on your barrel group, that is easy, which would be this section that we've removed here. Inner barrel removal is not difficult. So that's your barrel assembly for your hop unit and inner and the outer barrel. It's a two-piece barrel on this G36. It's not the same on the Mo, but on this particular one you've got a section there where you can unscrew this outer section. So that's your barrel assembly. But the main thing we're interested in, we are down to the gearbox. The gearbox is ready for disassembly, and we can have a look what's inside, see how it is. It doesn't look like there's particular problems. A bit of play on some of these sections. It is metal bushings, which is nice as standard, having metal bushings. They look like they're small. They look like 6mm bushings, those ones, which is not the best, but not the end of the world either. So stick with us. That's our first tech video on the G36. We've stripped it down to the gearbox. We've got the gearbox out. We're good to go. If you want to know what tools you'll need to do that, a hole punch. A set of punches is always handy in Airsoft. I've mentioned that in previous videos, but a punch is always handy. You don't need to have a punch. It's a useful tool, but you know, you don't have to have one. It'll serve you well. You can always use an Allen key or a screwdriver. You need 2 hex keys for this particular SRC. One was a 2mm and one was a 2.5mm hex key or Allen key. So a 2 and a 2.5mm Allen key. And you also need a Phillips or posi drive screwdriver to get to the gearbox. In the next video, we shall open this gearbox up and see how she's looking. See if we've got a nice set of components in there, see if it needs re-greasing or re-shimming. We shall see how we go. I think the potential issue with this particular replica is I do think the motor has had better days, so I have bought a replacement motor and hopefully it should work well with that, but it looks like a good quality gearbox. So stick around. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. I hope it helps out if you want to strip down your particular G36, and if you stick around for the next one, we'll take this gearbox apart and we'll have a look and see how we get on and what it's like inside. Okay, well, thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.